So today on Spread River Homestead, we're talking about your top 5 new homesteader questions about raising turkeys. Kanan, question 1.
Question 1 is, are male turkeys really aggressive?
Yes, during the breeding season, male turkeys are going to be aggressive. Now, layers of aggression kind of depend on the turkey. Turkeys during the breeding season are always going to be aggressive to other turkeys. Occasionally, you're going to get one that's aggressive to other hens. They'll sometimes pick out in a flock their favorite hens and may pick and shove off the other hens. Whether or not they're aggressive with humans is really going to depend a little bit on the turkey. But yes, every male turkey during the breeding season is going to show some form of aggression. Now, outside of the first few months of the breeding season, they shouldn't be aggressive. And if you've got a turkey especially that's coming after you, this is a tom turkey that needs to be culled because aggression will run in bloodlines and not something you want to breed into your flock. Question 2.
Number 2 is, I went to this feed store and I brought some broad-breasted turkeys. I can breed them, right?
No. Broad-breasted turkeys, because they are bred to be double-breasted, they have a really hard time getting into the physical breeding position. The other thing is these guys are not bred for long lives. They're bred to be harvested in 4 to 5 months, 6 at the very most, at which point if you try and go past that to an age that is actually a breeding age, which is at least 10 months, a lot of times they're going to have joint issues. This does include your hens. So if you're having joint issues, they're, 1, going to be very sluggish. 2, like I said, they're not going to get into a good breeding position. And the other thing is because of the way that they're bred, they don't always breed true, which is kind of interesting. So you could take 2 broad-breasted, and in theory, if you can get them to actually breed, the offspring a lot of times will not be broad-breasted. I've seen people that try and do a hybrid system. If you can get a broad-breasted hen that you can keep her under the weight limit to where her joints don't start having problems, you can put a heritage tom on her and actually breed for a meat turkey that is a heavier breasted than a heritage, but not quite a broad-breasted bird. Again, I've seen this. From what I understand, they're not real healthy chicks, so they don't often make it. But that is something, if you want to do a broad-breasted type animal, you may want to try it. I wouldn't waste the pen space and cage space personally, but there you go. I mean, it's an option.
Will my turkeys lay eggs all year?
No, turkeys are a seasonal layer. When we lived in Mississippi, they would start sometimes as early as January and finish up in October. It's a light issue more than anything. Where we are, being farther north in the country, because our light's a little bit different, we usually start seeing our first eggs in March, and we usually finish up in mid-September. This is a really healthy range. Turkeys, unlike chickens where you can put lights on them and get them to lay all year, really don't do that. And you really don't want them to. You want them to actually have the time off to replenish all the nutrients that they use during the laying season. So I would say for the average in the United States, you're probably looking at March to mid-September for your laying season in turkeys.
Will my turkeys get along with my other animals on the homestead?
It depends a little bit on your breed as to whether or not they'll coexist. Tom turkeys especially, you'll have more trouble if you're integrating them into other bird flocks because they like to challenge the other males, whether that's a chicken or a duck or a goose, and they try and steal the whole harem and try and take all the girls. So not always a good mix with other poultry. Other animals, sometimes they're fine, sometimes they're not. It's kind of an individualized question, so to speak. We had turkeys when I was a kid that would get out and they didn't mind the llamas, they didn't mind the goats, they didn't mind anything, but they sure didn't like the cows, and the cows didn't like them. I have a friend who had a tom turkey actually get pulled apart by a very angry quarter horse. The turkey was trying to crowd the horse, and the horse didn't like it, and that was the end of Mr. Turkey. So it depends a little bit on your animals and the nature of your turkeys, but it's always worth a try. Just supervise. And your last turkey question is?
Can I house my turkeys with my chickens?
You can, depending upon what part of the country you're in. If you're somewhere down south, you want to be very, very careful because down south has a lot more blackhead disease. Chickens are carriers, but it doesn't bother them. So you really won't know until you've got an outbreak in your turkey flock. Like I mentioned in another video where we talked about fowlpox, this is also another case where chickens don't really show the illness, but it can be devastating to turkeys. If you have the option, it's always best to separate them, not only for the health of your turkeys, but for the safety of your chickens, because a lot of times your toms will, if they don't have enough hens to keep them occupied, they'll try and breed your chicken hens, which of course never ends well for the chicken. So if it's an option at all, keep them separated. If not, you are welcome to try and acclimate them together. The feed requirements in grown turkeys are very similar to chickens, so they will coexist as far as feed. Housing is pretty close to the same. So it's something you can do if you're comfortable with it. But again, I, as somebody who breeds turkeys, would really recommend that you not do it and keep them separated just to prevent any chance of actual problems. So that's your top 5 newbie questions on turkeys. If you have others that we didn't cover, and I realize there's a lot of questions that people have about turkeys, feel free to leave them in the comments and we'll try and answer them there. If we get enough other questions, we'll be happy to do another one of these videos. We are in a couple weeks going to have a video all about raising turkeys, and then hopefully this summer I'm going to actually do some videos about the individual breeds of turkeys that we raise here. So if you have questions that you'd like to see featured in one of those videos coming up, please make sure to leave us a comment or send us a message. And that's it for this week on Sprague Homestead's Newbie Questions.